Well, it's been a very messy few weeks for coalition politics in the country. The City of Johannesburg has a new mayor after a coalition collapse, and a motion of no confidence is also on the cards in Ekurhuleni. So with municipal governments under coalition agreements being so unstable, what does this mean for 2024, where there is a huge possibility of a national coalition having to be made? Right, so what exactly can we attribute to the demise of these coalition governments? Is it due to a lack of performance or strategy to gain power by the ANC? Now, political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi joins us now to have this conversation. Prof, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on our program. I mean, that's the question. Is it just the cunning and crafty political ability that the ANC seemingly has in these metros, or is it a lack of performance by the DA that we've been seeing all these coalitions collapsing?
Hi, good morning, Ntokoza, and good morning to your viewers. I strongly believe it started even when these coalitions, whether formally or informally, were formed, and we all know immediately after the elections, local government elections, many of these multi-party, particularly the opposition, complained about almost a hardened stance of the Democratic Alliance about compromising on certain aspects. And in most instances, we know it's still the entrenchment of politics of the stomach that is continuing, because it seems as if even from the opposition, when they negotiate with the dominant partner of the coalition, they will always negotiate around positions, mayoral positions and all that, and nothing about the interest of the citizens as to how they are going to ensure that service delivery do reach the rank and file members of society or a certain community. And that, for me, it's a problem. Even if you look at what has been recently happening, one will add to, and I also have to start off where some of the other commentators have ended, about perhaps it's something that the African National Congress is doing well, but we know that behind the scenes there might be even promises of money and other incentives that it's now serving as an impetus for some of the decisions that the opposition are taking.
Well, all eyes are now on the city of Ekurhuleni as the ANC guns for governance there. You've asked us to go back to the inception of these multi-party coalition governments, their formations. And I want us to delve into that, actually. And I want us to specifically talk about Tanya Campbell as a mayor of Ekurhuleni. Unlike Dr. Mpho, Prof, she wasn't proffered up as a candidate to lead the metro. And so I wonder if a lot of thought, a lot of strategy was even put into her election as mayor of Ekurhuleni, and if that lack of foresight may in fact be contributing to the situation that Ekurhuleni could potentially find itself in come the 26th of October.
Yeah, but one should also look at some of the issue that is now being foregrounded for the reason to, at least continue with this vote of no confidence from the African National Congress, that she has not consulted with the residents. If that is the case, then I think the ANC should have been out of power in many of the municipalities in South Africa, because if you look at that. But yes, internal politics also plays a role. One can never rule that out, where you find that even members from the very same Democratic Alliance will now align themselves with other parties to try and oust their own. And this happens, it all depends whether it's going to be a vote in a secret vote, where some people will always have gripes when they lost out in internal elections within their own party. But I will not necessarily say that could be the reason. We've seen what the African National Congress have been doing now, and maybe that's their strategy. But for them to be able to convince the opposition, it's just yet again indicative of how unreliable politicians are, because just before the elections, for me, the dominant narrative was how opposition parties will enhance service delivery, improve accountability, something that they profess the African National Congress is not doing, and yet now they are yet again bringing in the African National Congress to lead some of these municipalities.
Talking about the unreliability of politicians, as you've mentioned, the Democratic Alliance also this week coming out with a 5-point plan, or proposing a 5-point plan in dealing with this instability that they have noticed in coalition governments. A number of suggestions being made here to try and regulate and legislate coalition governance in South Africa, also casting their eyes to the 2024 local government elections. What's your analysis of that plan, particularly the issue around the electoral threshold, calling for a much higher electoral threshold when, it's election time?
No, well, it's something good, but that's yet once again something that is, what we know about politicians, always reactive. The question is, once you enter, and it should be almost like natural. It's a basic element of any business agreement, is that you don't go into any agreement without looking at, how to deal with situations when there are problems. And that is the nature of these coalition governments. They jump into these agreements, and as I've indicated, because a party like the EFF always claim that they have not formally signed any agreement with one or other party. But whether formally supporting us, but one had to declare how you're going to navigate around challenges that may emanate. And remember, and that's where I strongly believe that our political system is actually stabbing South Africans in the back, because it's not about the leaders deciding what they want. And I know they have a mandate to decide on behalf of their members, but are they going back to the members to seek a mandate to support Party A or Party X? And these are some of the issues. Yes, it's a good move from the Democratic Alliance, but that will also not take away the arrogance that sometimes comes from some of these party leaders. And then I think the Democratic Alliance also, on another side, the footnote remark, is that it is bleeding. If you look at the number of, so-called black members who are leaving, senior black members leaving the party. And perhaps that also could be another factor that it's encouraging other opposition parties to exploit that situation. And that's currently where we are in terms of these coalition governments.
The instability that we're seeing with these coalition governments, Prof, is really turning out to be a double-edged sword for residents. Not only are they experiencing delays in service delivery because there really isn't any proper governance, but could there potentially be a subversion of their will happening here? Because we know that the ANC lost voter confidence in these metros in last year's local government elections, and now we're seeing them returning to power in a number of these cities. What does that say about the voters' will and the expressed voice of residents in last year's polls?
No, well, it's the nature of our politics, the current political landscape in South Africa, where once you have exercised your democratic right by voting, that's where your power ends, and we all know how the political system operates. You elect public representatives to advance your interests, but that is some of these voters vote for parties. Although we all know that the voting patterns are pretty much fixed, and that's why parties will know. They know the environment, the political environment is conducive to what they're doing. If politicians knew that they will be punished for entering into some of these agreements at a later stage, at another round of elections, they would not have done that. But they know that the South African electorate it's a type of citizens who will vote and take a back seat. And that's why, if you look at some of the issues in our country, crime and all that, we have become passive, citizens, and not taking on some of these issues. And that's why, for me, the residents are some of the least concerns of some of these agreements or the priorities of some of the leaders that they have initially voted for.
Well, Prof, thank you so much for coming on to our program this morning and helping us to have that conversation around the collapse of coalition governments. Let's take a look.